This video is going to show you how to access attributes with SpotPy, and I've got a Lab 3 folder set up with my SpotPy tests with the data that we're going to need to access, and then I've got a new Python script called attributes.py. Call it what you like, but give files a good name. And then here I've got the import scripts that I've copied over from one of the other tutorials and all of my file paths. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do in vector tutorials and 1.3.1 are reading attributes with while loops. Okay, so again, I'm just going to copy, paste some code. Now this is missing some inline comments, so I think we should add them. Whoops. Helps if I have my fingers on the right keys. And this is just going to get the number, attributes. Okay, so we're going to load the data set as we've done before, and we're going to load the Humboldt County zoning file. This one's actually clipped to the Eel River estuary, so it's a little bit smaller, runs a little bit faster. This is a big data set. Go ahead and get the number of attributes, and then we're just going to go ahead and print them out. This is a number, so we're going to format it when we print it. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And let's go ahead and run it and make sure that works. So it looks like we have 17 attributes. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but what are they? Well, in order to go through all the attributes, we need to do something called a while loop. And loops are one of the reasons we use computers for this type of work, because we can loop over things and do them one time, 100 times, or a million times. And that's really where the power of computers and programming comes in, is their ability to repeat things over and over again, often things that are incredibly mundane that we would not want to do. We automate a script to do it. Okay, so this is going to write out the name and type of all the attributes. So effectively go across the attribute columns in the attribute table. Notice first we set up an index and I set it equal to 0. Then I have a while loop. What a while loop does is it says while this value is less than this value, here's our number of attributes, then stay within this tabbed area. Okay, and then you can see that we go through and we get the attribute name, we get the attribute type, we print those out, and then we add 1. This is shorthand index, shorthand notation in Python. This is exactly the same as doing that. Okay, it's just instead of writing attribute index equals attribute index plus 1, which would get old when you do it 20 times, you can just say attribute index plus equals 1. Okay, so that line of code and that line of code do exactly the same thing, but we only want to do one of them. Okay, now I'm going to show you how this works, and that if we put a breakpoint here, good thing to do, use breakpoints. Okay, particularly anything that's new or when you're trying to debug something, go ahead and run it. All right, now we can actually go down here to stack data, and we can see there's our attribute index, and it's set equal to 0. Num attributes is equal to 17. So because this is true, or attribute index is less than num attributes, it's going to go into this code that is tabbed over. This is how Python knows what to execute within what we call the while loop. And if we do a single step, you'll see it goes in there. Whoops, I clicked on the wrong one. This is step in. I should have done step over, and this is step out. So I'm actually going to step out. Okay, so I'm back in my code. I just want to stay in my code for now. And then I'm going to step over, and then I'm going to step over. And now we're going to add 1 to the attribute index and jump back up. So now you can see attribute index equals 1. That's still less than num attributes. So we're going to keep going. We're going to add 1 again, and you can see that as we're going through, it's printing out our attributes. It's adding 1 to attribute index, and each time it's going through here, when it comes back up to the top, it's going to check and see if attribute index is less than num attributes. If it's true, it's going to keep going. I'm going to go ahead and move this breakpoint into my code so that I actually hit go. Okay. And now just a little bit faster that we can watch attribute index go up. 8, 9, 10, 11, 16. Okay. Now we're going to add 1 to attribute index. Now attribute index is 17. Num attributes is also 17. So this statement is now false. Okay. 17 is not less than 17. They're equal. So because of that, it's going to come out of our loop. Boom, and we're actually done. And I'll go ahead and do a print done here so we can see that. Okay. Now, tabs in Python are incredibly important because if we do this, okay, not only is that not going to execute our loop, it's going to give us an error. Because Python knows that when you have a while statement, which has to end in a colon, okay, special notation, colon says we're going to go into some type of a loop, we need to tab our code over, okay? So while attribute index is less than that, do this code. Now, there's another problem. Well, what if we do this? Okay, what if we don't tab our addition in? Well, this is the computers are stupid moment, okay? Notice I've got a breakpoint, min stack data, there's attribute index, there's num attributes. I'm going to go ahead and step. Oh, look, we left out attribute index plus equals 1. Okay, notice what is happening. Okay, attribute index is not changing. Num attributes is 17. So you may ask, how long will the computer keep doing this? Literally as long as the power is on. Computers are stupid. You're telling it to stay in a loop forever. It's going to stay in a loop forever. Okay, that's just how computers are. And it's incredibly frustrating because that really puts it on us to make sure our code is perfect. Now, when this happens, don't worry about it. It's called an infinite loop. It happens to all of us. I've had nightmares where I've been stuck in infinite loops when I was programming a lot. We can put a breakpoint in. Boom. There we go. We can take a look at stack data and go, oh, we're not incrementing our attribute index. Okay, I need to tab that in to make sure it gets incremented. Now, suddenly our code works perfectly, hopefully. Okay, coding is the process of writing code, little bits at a time, making sure it works, writing some more code. Okay, and now we can see our attributes, zoning, it's a string. Here's area, which is a float, acres, which is a float. We'll look at all these. Oh, here's a date, that's kind of cool. Okay, and these are the basic types that you'll see. You'll also see integer. Okay, so ints, floats, strings, and dates are pretty much all we'll work with in this class. There are a few other types, but they're rarely used. Okay, moving on, we're going to look at how to get to attribute values, something that we'll do on a regular basis. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this in, copy and paste the next section from the tutorial. And what you may have noticed is Wing tabbed over the code that I pasted in. Now, what Wing does is it tries to automatically help us do stuff, and usually that's a good thing. But in this case, when we paste in the code, Wing sees that there's a tab before this, so it tabs everything over, which is not what we want, because now this code is actually inside this while loop. So I want to do a shift tab, first select everything that we just pasted in, and then do a shift tab to bring it back over so everything starts in the first column until we get into this loop. This is the loop we want to be in, and this we want to have tabbed over, but we don't want to be inside of this loop, or every time we go through this loop, we'll be going through this loop. These are separate, okay? And also if you want, of course, you can just comment this out, and then just make sure to comment it back in before you turn in your assignment. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and run this, make sure it works. There we go, and you can see we just dumped a bunch of attributes. So what is this doing? First, we call zoning data sets num features, get num features function call. That returns the number of features. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and set a breakpoint, see how this works. Oops. Go to stack data, and you can see that we have 1,727 features. That's a lot, and that's just around Eel River. So there's a lot of parcels, a lot of zoning areas in Humboldt County, right? This is huge. And this is one of the things that's really powerful about computers, their ability to fly through, several thousand, tens of thousands, even 1 million records much faster than humans can, and also do really boring stuff perfectly, which we're just not good at. Okay, so number of features is 2,727. Feature index is 0. Then we're going to, because feature index is less than the number of features, we're going to go into this loop. Okay, and then we're going to call the get attribute value function and pass it the name of the attribute we want to get. So the column name, pass it the feature index. Right now that's 0. We're going to go ahead and print that out. Hey, there's our first zoning string. Then we're going to add 1 to feature index, and we're going to get the next one. And we're just going to keep doing that over and over again. And again, if we just go ahead and hit run, you're going to see how fast computers can do this type of stuff. And there's all of our zoning, including the TPZ that we're going to be playing with in a second. All right, so that's how we go in and get all the features. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at one that is acres, the number of acres. Again, paste, select, shift tab, and we'll dump out the number of acres. Some of them are same size blocks. Interesting. Okay. Moving on. Oh, sorry. Should have said. So that's getting the same attribute, getting attribute value, same function, but with a different attribute. All right. Now we can make this more interesting by going ahead and finding the total area. In other words, we can go through, whoops, need to go ahead and select, shift tab, push this back out again, and instead of just going through and looking at the area or the acres and printing it out, we can go ahead and create a sum. So I've created a variable here called sum equals 0 that I'm getting the attribute value. Actually, Melody, who created this, a student created this example, is doing, I should say. So she went ahead and added to the sum on each row here, okay, the value acres from each of the features. So we're going to loop, and each time we go through here, we're going to add to sum. Oh, and feature index is probably highlighted. No. Sometimes when you highlight things, okay, like if I double click on them features, it will highlight all of them. So if you click off, then that'll go away. Okay, so again, with stack data, we can see not only do we have our feature index increasing, here's our number of features, but we also have our sum down here. And you can see that each time through the loop, our sum is increasing. Sometimes there's a lot of digits after the decimal. That's just something computers do. Okay, those are floating point numbers. It's very accurate. All right, it would take way too long to do this, so I'm just going to go ahead and let it run. Boom, it's done. And there's our total area. And then it's also really easy to just divide that by the number of features, and then that gives us the average area for each of the parcels. Okay, and you can do all kinds of calculations and cool stuff using this approach with Python. You can do some of these things in Arc, but you can do a lot more in Python. Okay, another thing you can do, just to let you know, is you can delete an attribute. So this will delete an entire column of attributes from the file. And I'm going to go ahead and save this one out, and then you can load it into a GIS package to make sure it's working. Another reason I do this is because when we save this shapefile, these numbers, for some reason, are generating a warning from the open source package that we're using here. I think this is Fiona that's writing this out for us. So we verified in the file looks okay, it's just generating a warning. If you get those kind of warnings or errors, best thing to do is hit the web and see how people have solved it, but also I'm in class, feel free to just email me. All right, now the other thing I want to know how to do is be able to delete features. So here we're going to delete the first 10 features in the shapefile. In this case, we have an index, set it equal to 0. and then we're going to let it go for 10 times. So we're going to loop through here 10 times. 0 is the first one, so it'll actually go 0 to 9, which is 10 steps, okay? You need to get used to thinking about working with zeros when you're programming. And then we increment it, and we delete the first feature each time. That's it, okay? And that's it for this tutorial.